Hey everyone, it's Marcus with the Best Buy blog. Today I'm going to be reviewing 3 of Samsung gaming monitors. The entry-level Samsung Odyssey G3, the mid-tier G5, and the high-end G7. I'll be discussing the features that they share in common, their differences, how they stack up for gaming and productivity, as well as sharing my final thoughts. So what features do these monitors have in common? As these are all gaming monitors, the G3, G5, and G7 share some basic features that will satisfy all gamers. All 3 monitors come with FreeSync Premium, a 144Hz refresh rate, and a 1 millisecond response time. These monitors are meant to be fast. Now that we've talked about what these monitors have in common, let's start talking about what makes them different. First, we'll start with the monitor stand adjustments. So the stand adjustments on the Odyssey series are actually slightly different depending on the model that you choose. Both the G3 and the G7 give you the most flexibility in terms of the monitor stands adjustments. On both monitors, you can adjust the height, you can adjust the tilt, you can adjust the swivel, and you can tilt these into portrait mode. Strangely, on the mid-tier G5 monitor stand, there are no adjustments. According to the Samsung website, there should be the ability to adjust the tilt. However, on the model that I have here, the entire monitor stand is static. Of course, what you could do in the end of the day is you could remove the monitor stand and purchase a monitor arm, which will allow you to do all of those adjustments. When it comes to the panel types, this is where you'll arguably find the biggest differences between the G3, the G5, and the G7. They all use different panel types and they all have different screen resolutions. For starters, the G3 has a VA panel and a 1080p resolution. The G5 here also has a VA panel, but its resolution is now 1440p. And finally, behind me here, the G7 has a IPS panel with a 4K resolution. For the VA panels on the G3 and the G5, these panels provide good viewing angles and excellent contrast ratios. If you're looking for deep blacks, then the G3 and the G5 are your go-to monitors. In addition to the 1440p VA panel here on the G5 also comes with something that the G3 and the G7 doesn't have. It has a 1000 radius curve and adds a new level of immersion when you're actually sitting in front of this monitor. I actually really love this curved screen. When I'm playing games and watching movies, the curve made it easier for me to see what was actually happening on the peripherals of my monitor. So how about the G7? The G7 here, like I said, has a slightly different panel. It is an IPS panel. And the IPS panel has a slightly lower contrast ratio, but will have much wider viewing angles. However, in my test, I actually didn't notice much of a difference between the contrast ratios of the G7 and the other monitors here. When it comes to consuming media and gaming, the Odyssey series is fantastic. Both the G5 and the G7 are HDR enabled. This allows these monitors to display a wider spectrum of color and contrast. I loved watching movies in HDR. I was able to see more details in the dark scenes, the contrast was better, and the colors were more saturated. Speaking of colors, if you know me, you know that I love LEDs. And one unique feature of the G7 here is that it has RGB LEDs. The G7 has 2 RGB LEDs here on the front of the monitor, both on the left and the right side, and an RGB LED ring on the back. You can actually adjust the G7's LEDs to change color with whatever's displayed on the screen, so it'll actually sync with the image. Or, if you'd like, you can have the LEDs cycle through different colors using different behaviors like breathing or flickering. I'm a huge fan of the LED sync features on this monitor. Having the LEDs change with the color of whatever's on your screen just adds a whole new level of immersion when I'm watching movies and when I'm playing games. While the G3 doesn't have HDR or any fancy LEDs, it's no slouch when it comes to gaming and media. Because of the higher resolutions of the G5 and the G7, your PC needs to have more powerful hardware in order to push that many pixels. And this is where older PCs will struggle. They may even sacrifice crucial frames per second in order to display higher details. This is where your G3 will shine. Its resolution of 1080p means that the older and newer PC hardware will have no issues producing high frames per second. For anyone who's prioritizing high FPS gameplay, the G3 is going to be your go-to monitor. How do the Odyssey series stack up when it comes to productivity? Well, with their high contrast, wide viewing angles, and great color reproduction, the Odyssey series are ideal for productivity as well. In my daily testing with these monitors, I was happy with the performance of all of them. I found myself spending more time with the G5 and the G7 simply because they had a higher resolution. Usually I have more than one window open at a time, and the higher resolutions of the G5 and the G7 allow me to do split screen with these applications while at the same time keeping the text nice and crisp and readable. Alright, time for my final thoughts here. The Samsung Odyssey G3, G5, and G7 are fantastic monitors for your gaming, media, and productivity needs. They're fast, they're bright, they have great color reproduction, and have wide viewing angles. Samsung knows their market and did a good job of creating unique features that would satisfy their customers. If I had to choose one monitor out of the three here, I'd have to say the G7 was my favorite. I love the 4K resolution, the LEDs, the adjustable monitor stand, and it actually has G-Sync compatibility. That's something that none of the other monitors have. Well, that's all for today, everyone. If you'd like to know more about these monitors, you can check out my full review on the Best Buy blog. If you'd like to know what else I'm up to, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at pewx31 or on Facebook and YouTube at pewx3. Thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.